I'd like to introduce you to the materials and tools you will need to provide for the Othello project. The first item is a bead mat. This is the work surface. Next you will need a few beading needles. I prefer a size 11 or 12 beading needle. You will need some type of beading thread. I use 6-pound fireline or nylon beading thread. A small tube of E6000 glue is required. This comes in a tube, and you will also need a toothpick to apply the glue to your project. Flat nose or chain nose pliers come in handy to flatten the thread, making it easy to thread your needle. This tool is optional. Next is a tool for cutting your beading threads close to your beadwork, thread snips or wire cutters. We will be using a measuring tape to determine the size of your bracelet. This will be used to measure your wrist. An alternate would be to use a string or a ruler. Starting and ending your threads. I use half-hitch knots to add thread to my project. When threading your needle, use your flat nose or chain nose pliers to flatten your thread. This makes it easier to thread your needle. We're going to bring our thread down about 6 inches from the needle. It's going to be a single thread. And we're going to create half-hitch knots to get our thread started. So I'm just going into a couple of beads. I'm going to hang on to my tail. I'm going underneath the thread where your thread is exiting. You're going to create a loop and then go into the loop. And so now I'm going to do another half-hitch knot right on top of that one. So I'm going underneath the thread in between the two beads, creating a loop and going into the loop. So now we have 2 knots. So I'm going to go into a few more beads. And we'll do another set of knots. I like to do 2 sets of knots because we're stretching the beadwork over the cording and we need to get it good and secure so it doesn't come apart. So we're going underneath the thread again, into the loop, and guide that in between the beads where your thread is exiting. Do one more. So now we have 4 half-hitch knots, and then we go into a few beads, and then you go to where you want to get started, and you just go ahead and trim your tail because we've got 4 knots holding that into place, and you continue your beadwork. Now when your thread starts to get short, you want to end the beadwork with knots, and so we'll do the same thing to end the beadwork. We'll just add a couple of half-hitch knots. So I've got 2 here. Now I'm going to go into a few beads and we'll do 2 more. And make sure you guide it where the thread is exiting. Underneath the thread, we're not going into any beads, only under the thread, and then into the loop. And then you'll go into a few more beads. And to end your thread, you'll just trim it at that point. Bracelet sizing. The Othello bracelets are bangles designed to sit between your wrist and the widest part of your hand. To establish the size of the bracelet, measure the circumference of the widest part of your hand, and you're going to want to cut the 4.8 millimeter cording this length. So I'm measuring my hand around the center of the thumb, and you pull it tight, and I'm measuring about 8 inches. So I'm going to lay my cording out, and I'm going to cut it 8 inches long. And you want to use this measurement if you want the bracelets to fit somewhat snug. Here's an example of how they're going to fit. You know, when you put them on, you do them one at a time, and they're going to be loose when you wear them. And if you want them looser than this, you may want to add about 1/4 inch. And I've included a chart on page 2 that gives you a general guide for sizing your bracelets. Make note of your cord length on your pattern so you remember your cording length when you want to make the next bracelets. The base strip. We're going to build a base strip with right angle weave using size 15 seed beads and size 3mm bugles. So we're going to thread our needle with 1.5 to 2 yards of fire line, and we're going to pick up alternating 15s and bugles, starting with a 15 until you get 4 of each. So I've got mine picked up here, and I'm going to slide them down towards my tail, and we're going to tie this into a double knot. Okay, so we have our first square, and our knot is exiting the bottom left hand corner of the bugle, and then we're going to go left to right into that bugle to avoid the knot. And we're going to pick up alternating 15 and bugles until we get 3 bugles starting and ending with a 15. Okay, so we're going to circle around, and we're going to go left to right into that bottom bugle, and we're going to continue around our box into our 15 and our bugle, and our 15 and our bugle. So we have 2 squares. We're going to pick up alternating 15s and bugles again, starting and ending with a 15 with a total of 3 bugles. Okay, this time we're going to go right to left into our bottom bugle. And then we're going to go down our 15 and bugle. And into the next 15 and 3mm bugle. And continue into the next 15 and bugle. Okay, so we've completed step 4. And step 5, we're going to pick up a 15, bugle, 15, bugle, 15, bugle, 15, same pattern. And we're going to go up the bugle and then continue into the 15 in the bugle. So now we're going to pick up a 15, bugle, 15, bugle, 15. And we're going to go down the middle bugle. We're going to pick up a 15 to go in that corner and go into the next bugle. And then we're just going to keep working around that box. And we're going to add another 15 in the corner. And so you pick up your 15 and go up your bugle. So now we're going to pick up a 15, bugle, 15, bugle, 15. So this time we have 3 15s and 2 bugles. And we're going to go right to left into this bugle. So we have 6. We're going to continue circling around the box we just built and go down our 15 and bugle. So we're exiting here out of this bugle. So we have 6 squares built. This is our width of our base that we're building. And if you return to step 4, it'll look just like this. We're gonna flip it over. Every time we build 6 squares, we're gonna flip it and continue. So at step 5, this is where you'll start adding your beads, and if you go back to step 4, it'll look just like this. So you're gonna repeat and build your base. And whatever your cording length is, you want to build it about half the length of your cording. So my cording is 8 inches, and I've built a 4-inch strip, 17 squares long by 3 squares wide. So go ahead and get your length and finish your base. Base strip connection. We've completed our base strip. We're going to lay our rubber cording on our strip. We're exiting the bottom right hand bugle. So we're going to turn this vertical. We're going to pick up a 15, bugle 15, and we're going to go down the bugle on the left. And pick up a 15, bugle 15, and go up the bugle on the right. So we're basically creating a 4th row to close up our right angle weave. So I'm going to just weave around and exit at the bottom. Okay, so we've got that top square completed. We're going to pick up a 15 and go down the bugle on the right. And a 15, bugle 15, and up the bugle on the left. Okay, so now we need to add the 15 in the corner. So we're going to go left to right into that bugle. And then weave our way back down to the bottom again. Okay, so now we'll add the 15 in the corner. And we'll do the 15, bugle 15 again. And go up the bugle on the right. Now we need to add that 15 in the corner and weave our way back down to the bottom. Okay, so you're just going to continue adding your right angle weave until you close the strip up. And when I do a set of 3 bracelets, I like to vary up the length of my right angle weave. I'll do a few more rows on one bracelet and a few less rows on another bracelet. Preparing the ends for the netted stitch. The right angle weave base is now completed, and we're exiting down the right bugle on the end here, and we're going to pick up 3 size 11 seed beads, the base, accent, base, and we're going to circle around and go back down the bugle. And so the set of 3 is going to sit right next to the bugle. We're going to go down 2 15s and 1 bugle. And we're going to pick up another set. So 11 base, 11 accent, 11 base. And then we're going to circle around and go back down that bugle down the 2/15 and down the bugle. We're just going to keep repeating this all the way around. So I'm exiting the bugle, picking up an 11, base, accent, base. Going, circling around, going back down the bugle. And then we'll go down the 2/15s and into the bugle. Okay, so this will be our last set. Base, accent, base. Going back down the bugle. And now we're going to turn around and go back up. And we're going to put an 11 in between each set of 3. So I'm going to add an accent bead in between my sets of 3. So I'm exiting the base bead 11, picking up an 11 accent, and going into the next set of 3. So you're going to add a total of 4 accent beads in between each set. This is my second one. And we're going to add our final accent bead. So we're just putting them in between each set of 3. And then I'm going to do a half hitch knot and end my thread. Just going underneath the thread in between the beads and into the loop. I'm using 2 sets of double knots to end the thread, and then I just run it into a couple of beads and cut it. Okay, so you just want to repeat that on your other end over here, and then you'll be ready to start your netting. Embellish the right angle weave strip. We're going to add our 11 seed beads to embellish our bracelet. And so I've done a couple rows here already. So we're exiting the bottom right hand size 15 seed bead. We're going to pick up 2 11s and go diagonally across into the 15. And we'll pick up 2 more 11s and go back to the 15 where we started. So you want to pull them tight. You're going to go up your 2 11s and down your 2 11s. And go back up the 2 11s and down your bugle and your corner 15. So you're always working right to left. So we're going to repeat this again, picking up 2 11s, go diagonally into the 15 seed bead, pick up 2 more 11s, go back to the 15 where we started. And we go up the 11s, down the 11s, up the 11s, and I like to hold it as I pull the string to tighten it up. Go down your bugle and out your corner 15. So you're just going to repeat this all the way down the strip, and this is going to start to naturally spiral as you work on your project. When you get down to the end and complete a row, then you're going to weave through your square and exit your bottom 15 and then work right to left again. So it'll alternate this direction, and then you'll flip it and you'll go right to left again until you finish all the rows. Gluing and heating the rubber tubing. You want to keep your beadwork attached, and we're going to cut a 1/2 inch piece of the polyolefin tubing. It comes in strips like this, and we're going to cut about 1/2 inch off. Okay, and we're using E6000. I'm just going to put a little on a plate, and I have a toothpick, and I'm just going to dab some inside the tube. So I'm just going to run that all on the inside of the tube. This is just to keep it secure as you're putting it on and taking it off. Okay, so we're going to insert the cording into the tubing about halfway on each side. And then I'm using a heat gun. You can also use a hairdryer. And we're going to just heat this until it starts to shrink. And it's shrunk down. You can kind of adjust a little bit so you still have a good curve. You don't want to overheat it because you'll get a big kink in it, you know. And then you're going to want to let that dry for about 30 minutes. And it's okay to go ahead and work on your beadwork all the way up to the closure, as long as you leave room for the connection, if you like to work on it on a straight piece of rubber rather than on a curve. Netting. We're exiting our center 11 seed bead next to our bugle. We have sets of 3s next to the bugle. And we're going to lay out 4 sets of 3. And these are base, accent, and base beads. And so I'm going to pick up size 11 base, accent, base. And I'm going to skip 3 beads and go into the 4th bead. And this is going to be another accent bead. So pick up base, accent, base, skip 3 beads, go into that 4th accent bead. Base, accent, base, skip 3 beads, go into the 4th bead. Base, accent, base, skipping 3 beads, going into the 4th bead, and then we step up into 2 beads coming out that center accent bead. So now I'm going to do another row. I'm going to lay out 4 more sets of 3. So we're still exiting the center accent bead. We're picking up base, accent, base. We're skipping, basically after your first row, it's more obvious. You can see that accent bead sticking up more, so you just go into that accent bead. You're still skipping 3 beads going into the 4th bead, but we're just picking up the 3 and going into the accent bead. And the purpose of laying out the sets of 3 is so we don't forget to step up at the end of the row. So it's a good idea in the beginning to lay your rows out. I'm going to turn this around so you can see it better. So this is our last set. Base, accent, base. And so we're going into that accent bead and then stepping up into the 2 size 11 seed beads. Okay, and then you're just going to continue that until you get close. I like to start my spiral stitch next to my heat shrink tubing. This way one of your peyote strips will cover up the join there. Optional knitted pattern. We're going to lay out our sets of 3, 4 for each row, just like we did in the regular knitted stitch. And so adding a pattern, we're going to remove one on the first set of the 11 seed beads and add a size 8 seed bead. So we're exiting the center 11 in our netting. We're going to skip 3 beads and go into the 4th bead. And I'm picking up 3 more 11s and going into the, skipping 3 beads, going into the 4th bead, going into that center bead. We're going to do that all the way around for the first row. It's a little bit more difficult to see the kind of where you're at when you're using one color. So you really have to count. So we're skipping 1, 2, 3, going into the 4th bead, and on that last row we're skipping up 2 more beads, and we're going to exit the size 8 seed bead. So now we'll do one more row with just 11s, skipping 3 beads, going into the 4th bead. So first set, second set, third set, and our 4th set. On the last step, we're going into that center bead, which is the large one, and then we're stepping up 2 size 11 seed beads. If you look on your pattern, it shows you where you'll end up at the end of each row. So let's lay out 2 more sets, which in the beginning it's a good idea to lay these out so you don't miss your step up. So I'm doing 2 rows with 4 sets of 3. And then we're changing out one of our 11s for a size 8 seed bead or a size 3 millimeter bead. Okay, so we're going to start again with our 11 seed bead, 8 seed bead, 11 seed bead. We skip 3 beads and go into the 4th bead. We're just going to keep repeating this. We're going into that accent bead, and on the first row we're going to go into 2 11s and then an 8. So we're stepping up 2 beads. So we're going to add 4 more sets. And on the last set, you should be going into your size 8 seed bead and then stepping up to 11 seed beads. And so you'll start to see a pattern. And so you just want to continue that. When you're doing your pattern in your Othello bracelet, you're going to want to do about 8 to 10 rows starting out, and then do your pattern going around, and then do about 8 to 10 rows at the end. That way your here's your pattern here. So you're going to have about 8 to 10 rows on each side of your pattern netted strip. Connect the netting. We're going to line up the netting and start the connection. we've done our netted stitch, finish that out, and so we're sitting the beads so that they're off center. So you've got your accent bead coming out here, and then your next one is coming out here, so they're right next to each other. So you kind of have a zigzag going on here. You're going to need 8 size 11 seed beads. These are the base bead color, and we're exiting an A accent bead. We're going to pick up a size 11 seed bead, and we're just going to go directly across into the next accent bead. And we're just zipping this up. So we're going to pick up another 11, and we're going to go to the opposite side into the accent bead. Pick up another 11 and go into the bead on the right. You just need to keep up with if you're going right or left. So we're going to pick up another one and go to the left. Okay, I'm picking up an 11 and going to the right. I'm picking up an 11 and going to the left. And one bead going to the right. And this is the final 8th bead. And now I'm going into the left. And now we're just going to weave right and left. I'm going to go back through and secure this. And right and left. And so you just want to go through this twice to get a good secure connection. Embellishment. We're going to add the 3mm and the size 15 seed beads on the outer edge of the bracelet. So what you want to do is have your connection lined up straight. So you can just follow your accent bead. And we're going to give enough room for our peyote strip. You can go ahead and build your peyote strip and measure it exact, or you can just start around here and then add your peyote strip and then add the beads that are missing later. So you can see these diamond patterns here, and so the bead's going to sit right in the center of that diamond pattern. So I'm exiting the bottom, which is here, and we're going to pick up a 15, a 3mm, and a 15. And so with your being at the bottom of the diamond pattern, we're going to go directly across to the top of the pattern, and that bead's going to sit right in there. And so now we're going to go up and down on the row right above that pattern. So I'm going to the left into the 11, and then down to the left, and then into that accent bead. And so we're going to put the next one in this area here. I'm going to pick up a 15, 3mm, and a 15. And so we're exiting here, and we're going to go directly across here. And this one's going to sit right next to that one. Okay, and so then we're going to go down and up on the next row and back into that accent bead. And pick up another 15, 3mm, and 15. And so we're going to go directly across and then to the left into the next row. And then down into the accent bead. Okay, and so you're going to continue this until you want to leave space for your next peyote strip. Peyote strips. we're going to begin even count flat peyote with size 11 delicate cylinder seed beads. You're going to lay 2 colors on your mat, and we're going to string a stopper bead. So you're just picking up a bead, sliding it towards your tail, and going back up that same bead, and it will stop it in place. Just keeps your beads from moving around. So we're going to pick up a border color, and then 2 inside colors and another border color. And we're just going to do a 4 bead row so you can see how to do this. Okay, so we have our 4 beads and our stopper bead on the end, and we're going towards our tail. We're going to pick up a border color. We're going to skip a bead and go into the next bead. And we want those beads to sit side by side. You might have to force them to sit side by side. Then we're going to pick up an inside color, skip a bead, and go into the next bead. And you want to pull these tight when you get to the end of the row. Okay, and so now we're going to work back this direction. So we're going to pick up a border color, and we're going to go into the bead sticking out. And then we're going to pick up an inside color and go into the next bead. So you're still picking up a bead, skipping a bead, and going into the next bead. Now we're going the other direction. And if your beads get loose, just pull on the bead and then tighten it up. It's a good idea just to pull your thread at the end of every row, and this will make a nice tight stitch. So we're picking up a bead, skipping a bead, and going into the next bead. Okay, and so this is a 4 bead width, and I like to make them like 4, 6, and 8 beads wide. And we're also going to go in how to connect the strips together. So go ahead and build your strips, and when you count your rows, you're going to have 20 beads on one side and 20 beads on the other, and then you know you have your length. And to get rid of your stopper bead, you just pull that off, and then you'll just weave your tail in. Now when I end my thread, I don't use knots in peyote. If I was going to end my thread here, I would just weave in a figure 8 through the beads to end my thread. So you're just going to go in a circular 8-shape motion. And so you won't ever add knots, it just makes an invisible knot in the beadwork. So I just weave around enough to where it hides the knot within the beads, and then you'll just trim that. And I use a 6 and 8 width that I attach together, and then I do a 8 width on the other side. So you could do any size widths that you want. Like on this one, I've done a 4 width and an 8 width. So you can vary them up however you want. Connection 1. We're going to connect the strips by adding cylinder beads, and then we're going to weave them together. So you're exiting an end bead, you're going to pick up a delicate bead, and so I'm exiting this end bead here, and then we're going to go into the next bead, and then we'll just come out the next bead and go into the next bead. So you're adding a cylinder bead to every 2 sets of beads, and you have 20 long, so you're going to add 10 cylinder beads. We just do one more. You come out here, pick up a delicate, go into the next bead, and exit again, and you'll just continue that all the way down. So now I'm going to start a thread over here. So I just hold my tail, and then I'm going to come back this direction. I'm going to do like a figure 8 in the beadwork. So you're just weaving around to produce a knot. I'm just going to go up and down the bead so I can exit the end bead. And then I'll just trim my tail. Okay, so now I'm going to connect the beads that we've added. And I'm exiting the end bead. I'm going to go into the bead that we added. And then I'm going to go into the second bead. So we're connecting these two strips. So I'm coming out the third bead. And I'm going to go into the bead, the second bead that we added. And so now I'll go into the fourth bead. So you're doing the same thing here. You're connecting this bead with every 2 sets of beads. So you'll just continue that all the way down, including 10 beads. Connection 2. We're going to connect the 2 strips using size 8 seed beads or 3mm beads. So we've built our 2 strips that are 20 beads long, and we're exiting the end bead here, and we're going to pick up a size 8 seed bead and go directly across to the other strip. And then, so these are going to run right down the middle. So now we're going to go into our next row and go down and up a bead. And then we'll exit that third bead. And so we're adding a bead to every 2 delicates. So I'm picking up another 8. I'm going to go into the third bead. And then we're just going to go up and down again. And then we're exiting our end bead, picking up an 8, and going directly across. So we go up and down the next row. And exiting our end bead. Okay, so we're adding a total of 10, 1 to every 2 beads. Attach the focal beads. We're going to attach the focal beads to the peyote strips using a double thread. And so I have my peyote strip here, and I'm using a double thread. I'm going to work my way to the center. Okay, so I'm just going to hang on to the tail of my double thread, and I'm going to create a knot in the beadwork. And then I want to come out the center of the delicates. So you have 8 beads, and you want to come out the 4th bead. So I'll make sure I have it good and secure, so I'm going to add another knot. Okay, so you can just cut that thread. So we're basically coming out somewhere around the center of the strip, and we have a double thread. So we're going to string the beads we want to add in layers. I'm just going to do a silver and bronze set. So you want to string your beads on, and then you want to use a size 15 or a size 11 seed bead. And so we're going to pick up that end bead, we're going to skip that bead and go back through the rest of the beads. So I'm going to go back to my stack, and then on your base strip where you've exited the fourth bead, then you'll just go directly into the next bead and then go straight down to the back. So you're going to be coming out the back of the center of the strip, and you can just pull up on that bead and then pull your string until it tightens up. Oh, it's not wanting to cooperate. Okay, so now I've got them good and tight. And so we've got our beads on top, and we're coming out somewhere around the middle. So now we're going to go into the very end bead, and your thread is going to sit right on top of that. Of course, this is going to go like this, so you're not going to be able to see that thread. And so you want to leave your double threaded needle attached. And then I also have my needle on this end where we're going to attach the peyote next. Connect the peyote strips to the bracelet. So we have our peyote strip with our focal beads, and we have our double threaded needle attached. And then we have another thread exiting one of our end beads. And we're coming out the end bead here. And so we're going to attach this to the bracelet. Okay, so usually I put a wider strip here and a thinner strip here, and this is where the connection is. You want to cover that up with the wider strip. So you're going to set it upside down, and this thread is still going to stay attached on your focal beads. And we're just going to zip up the peyote. So I'm coming out this end here, and we're just going to go into the other end bead, pull those together, and then we'll go through the beads that are sticking out. It's kind of like a zigzag. So I'm just going left and right to pull the beads together. And don't worry if it doesn't pull it tight enough, because we're going to do that when we get to the end. So I just take my thread and pull tight when I complete the row. And then we're going to connect those together, so I'm going to come back this direction and then weave into a knot. Okay, and I'm just going to trim that on the end. And then we're going to turn this over. And we have our double thread here. And so you want to get this in the spot where you want it. And here's where I've added my 3mm beads. And if you're just guesstimating when you add those, then you can come back and fill in with your 3mm bead where there are spaces. So now we're coming out the peyote strip, and we just want to go directly into our netting with our double thread. And always check and make sure everything's sitting really tight. And now we're just going to weave into our netting and do some double half hitch knots. And watch your thread, because this is double thread and it does get knotted up fairly easily. So you just want to guide that in between your beads. So I did two knots, and then I'm going to go into another bead and do 2 more knots. Okay, and then I'm going to work my way back up towards the peyote strip. And I'm going to go into the peyote strip, into the end bead. And I'm working my way towards the center of the strip. It was about time to change my needle out. Get a little crooked. Okay, so now we're going to add our focal bead to the side here. And so you just go into your bead and pick up a size 11 or size 15. And you're going to skip the 11 or the 15 and just go back into your bead. So then we're exiting the center, and I want to go back towards the netting to attach it. So I'm just going into a bead and then going underneath the peyote strip. And then you'll do the same thing here. Pull up on your thread and tighten everything. Now, to keep this strip from moving around, if you exit your end bead in one spot and then attach it to the netting, it should hold it in place. If you feel like it's not staying tight enough, you can attach it on the other side. And so we're just going to work our way into the netting and do some half hitch knots. I'll probably use the same thread and go ahead and add my 3mm bead that's missing here. And so you're going to attach your focal beads to your double strip, which I haven't done yet, but I just wanted to show you when you go to put this one on, and you can actually attach the peyote strip here and the peyote strip here separate, or you can attach this one and weave through your 8s and continue to attach this one here. You'll have to go into a circle on the end beads so that it gets everything nice and tight, and then you'll do the same thing with that. Attach focal beads and then turn it around and then work into your netting with your thread.